when someone's getting to elite level competition, I think that I can see the justification for using carbohydrates in performance, like Zach Bitter, that incredible runner. I believe he will train and live essentially zero carb, but when he's really performing and during high intensity training, he will use carbs. And in his words, it's just a rocket fuel. It's like an extra fuel. So I do think for those who engage in very high intensity activity, I could be easily convinced that there is a value to dietary carbohydrates, even in the low carb adapted athlete. But I know many, especially endurance athletes, who don't flirt with that kind of stuff at all. And even in the midst of their Ironman, they're still all in full low carb keto, and they do great. Yeah. I'm just saying I could be convinced. It wouldn't take a lot of evidence for me to say, yeah, that makes sense. Where if you're tossing in some glucose in the midst of it, you're going to use that glucose and you're going to use it greedily.
I essentially quintupled my caloric intake at that point because I was eating very small amount of lean muscle meat, and then a lot of greens, which don't have many calories in them. And I went to eating 2 to 3 pounds of fatty ribeye with butter melted on it a day. And so I was eating way more calories, and yet I dropped weight and I felt better. What are your thoughts on the whole calories in, calories out idea?
Yeah. So I think invoking thermodynamics in weight loss was one of the greatest tragedies of our understanding of human metabolism. And maybe even to say that another way, looking at nutrients as calorie sources, I think is unfortunate, because if we're looking at the calories, then we immediately develop a weight loss paradigm that is based on hunger. Imagine if I'm holding a buffet, a wonderful dinner at my home. It's a buffet, and I've invited the world's best chefs, and they're going to produce the best foods. They're going to make the best foods you could ever imagine. Come hungry. What would you do to come as hungry as possible? And always the consensus is 2 things. My students always say this. They would eat a little less in the days before, and they would exercise a little more. And I say, you're exactly right. That would help you come to this glorious buffet as hungry as possible. But do you see the problem with that? They just gave me this perfect 2-step recipe to make hunger as strong as possible. That is the exact 2 things we've been saying for 50 years to help people lose weight. Yep, eat less, exercise more. That's a great way to be really hungry. And that means if you use those 2 same steps in order to lose weight, sure, you'll lose a little bit of weight initially, but hunger always wins, and you're going to get off and you're going to gain it all back and then some. You look at what happens at a fat cell and you say, I want to shrink that fat cell. You can shrink a fat cell through 2 different ways. I promise this is relevant. One is low energy. If you deprive a fat cell of nutrients, it will shrink. Now, of course, there's a problem at the body, namely the brain, and that is that it's going to start to push hunger. Conversely, an alternative way of shrinking a fat cell is lowering insulin, because if you lower insulin now, even if you're eating a lot, you can't stop the fat cell from breaking down its fat and leaking it out. So even if you're eating a lot and there's still fat coming in, it likely will not match the rate at which the fat is coming out in order to be burned. And even just purely caloric discussion, when insulin is low, metabolic rate is higher. So your metabolic rate does go up to the tune of about 300 calories per day. That's pretty significant. That's like going out and running. I don't even know. I don't run 5 miles maybe.
Annotated and summarized. Easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.